Okie dokie, meeting is recording, and can everybody hear and see me okay? Yes, the slides are good, presented there. Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. It's absolutely wonderful to see you all. This is the September 2024 monthly meeting of NASQN, and I'm Dr. Brian Silva, founder and incoming CEO and board president of NASQN, National ABA Service Quality Network. And we will jump right in here. So for, I don't think we have any newcomers here, but for folks viewing this through YouTube, NASQN's mission is to empower individual practicing behavior analysts everywhere with the resources and connections they need to deliver the highest possible quality ABA services. So what NASQN is really all about is about scientific management and quality assurance, and getting behavior analysts the tools they need to positively impact quality in their ABA service settings. And so the vision is that NASQN will serve as a grassroots group of interconnected ABA service delivery professionals who exchange information and resources in support of each other's efforts to amplify the positive impact of ABA around the world. And we do this by supporting advances in scientific management and robust quality assurance systems and ABA service organizations. So there's a number of ways that we plan to do this in the future, but right now some of the things that we have going on are LinkedIn group where members can exchange information, resources, and network. We also have work groups where teams of people from around the country are working together to produce resources for NASQN and for members that will be freely available. We have a newsletter and a variety of other ways that we are pursuing this vision today. So we'll talk about some of those things today in this meeting. And so here's our agenda. So we'll welcome first-time attendees. And yeah, I don't know if anyone's a first-time attendee or I've met you and I'm thinking that you attended a meeting previously, but no, we just met and you haven't been to this meeting. So in the next slide, we'll give an opportunity for people to say, yes, actually, I am attending for the first time. Okay, that might be you, Dana. I'm not sure. Okay. And then we'll go over the NASQN metrics. And then I'll provide you with an update on the behavior analysis in practice special issue that proposal that we submitted. As well as we'll give you leaders of our work groups, Adriana Anderson and Sarah Ferrero, or perhaps Aaron Kellett, will give you a status report on the progress of their work group. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about an update on NASQN's nonprofit status. We'll give you an update on board of directors and how that formation of the board is coming along. And then Jeremy and I have played around with some logos because the current logo is not going to be the forever logo. It's a placeholder. And so, yeah, we're playing with some logos and we thought it would be fun to engage y'all and solicit your opinion, put some sample logos to vote. I thought that would be fun. And then hopefully we'll have time at the end to do a brainstorming session, and we'll follow up on something we talked about last month, which is we talked briefly about this idea that quality jobs in the ABA service, ABA autism service industry may be increasing in prevalence or incidence. So specifically jobs with quality in the title. And we thought it'd be interesting to talk, as a group about what a quality job is in ABA service delivery settings and what might variability in the responsibilities and roles of people with a quality in their title might be, and then take the conversation from there, see if there's an opportunity. And then we'll wrap up. All right, so if you're a newcomer, welcome. All right, and what we'll do is I'll invite you to go ahead and, if you like to, introduce yourself. And maybe name your affiliation, where you come to us from, and maybe one thing that you hope to contribute to NASQN, and then another thing that you hope to gain from NASQN. And just before someone jumps on the mic here, there's 2 QR codes on the screen. So on your left side, if you have a resource to share with the network, you could just scan that QR code, and that would be a way that a mechanism for you contacting myself and Jeremy and saying, hey, I have a resource that I think would benefit the members, and I'd like to share it. We'll follow up with you. Okay. That's another mechanism for us doing resource sharing. And then if you're new to continuing education in quality and you're starting your professional development journey pertaining to quality, or you're well along your journey and you're just looking for more resources and information, and then you could scan that QR code, and for free you'll download our what we call something like a quality professional development reference list, if you will, with some resources there. Okay, and all right, I'll turn it over to anybody who's new and would like to introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Dana. You already called me out. I am Dana D'Ambrosio. I am a BCBA and New York State licensed behavior analyst. I've been certified for 11 years at this point. I am coming from the payer arm of Rethink First. So some people may be familiar with Rethink BH. We're an EMR system. I come from the payer side of that business. So I am hoping to bring a different sort of perspective to the group in terms of what third-party payers and funders are looking for in terms of quality, value-based care, all of those sorts of things, and looking to get more information on how, you know, people in the field are actually measuring quality at this point, from provider to provider and across clinic settings and across the country.
Wonderful. Outstanding. So glad to have you, Dana. Is there anybody else? I don't think there is anybody else. Oh, go ahead.
I think this might actually be my first time on the meeting. I'm having a hard time tracking because I've been in contact with you all and I have been following the meetings. But I think this is my first time being able to attend synchronously. So I'm Jen Collado. I am a Director of Clinical Quality at Centria. So I oversee a small team of quality reviewers there, and have some overlap with some of our compliance related functions and lots of collaboration with that team. And I also am very excited to learn more about how other organizations are both defining and measuring quality. Because I think that we are finding within my organization that what was once purely known as compliance has become highly quality oriented, which is both exciting and also an area for, you know, I think further exploration from organizations like these as well, especially when we think in minds of payers both creating opportunities for the best outcomes for their members, and also payers creating opportunities for recoupment and clawbacks. So, yeah.
Outstanding. Wonderful. Glad to have you, Jennifer. Yeah, I think this is your first meeting to attend. Yeah. Well, so glad you could make it. So glad you could make it. And anybody else? All right, I think that's it. Okay, wonderful. Okay, next we'll go over some of NASQN's metrics. And so NASQN formed its LinkedIn group in January. And so I've been tracking the cumulative total number of members of that LinkedIn group. And so we are at now a total of 253 members. And so it continues, membership continues to grow, but it looks like the pace has slowed a little bit there. And so that's driven heavily, I believe, by social media activity. So it's like posts as opportunities to become aware of NASQN, that it exists, because we don't have a website and we don't have a conference presence, for example, or many of the other channels in which to reach folks throughout the ABA autism services industry, you know. So anyways, so we continue to gain members there, but there's some other interesting things happening. I'm tracking a few different metrics. So let's see here. On the top, you see in green, 401 new visitors. So a couple months ago, we established a placeholder website. It's just a single page that says NASQN, achieve parity, subscribe to keep, to receive updates. And we've received 401 new visitors there. Okay, so so that's interesting. So it looks like maybe our online presence is whatever channels are driving traffic to that website, maybe instead of the LinkedIn group. Nevertheless, that's some increased activity and awareness of NASQN. And then the purple bar graph that you see there are site visitors in the last 30 days to that placeholder website. So a recent increase in some activity and traffic to that website. Down below, you see screenshots of YouTube videos, which are just recordings of these meetings. They've received a few views. People know, somebody knows they exist. Okay, not getting a lot of traffic there. Who cares? At this point, the YouTube channel is there for folks like Jennifer, who are like, man, I really wanted to get to this meeting, but I couldn't, so now I can view it on YouTube, you know. And perhaps the value or utility of that will increase as more people want to attend the meetings but can't. And then the little video screenshot in the far right-hand corner is a TikTok screenshot. Okay. So basically, there's a new AI app online where you can download any, upload any video into the app, and then it will, in seconds, generate short video clips that are essentially TikTok posts, if you will. Okay, and so then what I did is I selected from those, and I took a few because we only have limited time and resources. I don't have a social media manager taking a video, chopping it up, and launching a social media campaign on TikTok, right? So we're using technology to play around and explore a little bit, which we can do at an early stage and have fun with it. And yeah, so 90 times that TikTok video was viewed. So I don't know, we're doing things. All right, and I do think on the bigger overall picture here is that awareness that NASQN exists and what vision and mission are is probably increasing at this point. Now there's an even more exciting, perhaps exciting metric to share with you, is that I think it was in July, yeah, late July, we Jeremy and I launched a solicitation for board members. Okay, so we opened an application to fill seats on NASQN's board of directors. And so these are the different positions, seats that we tentatively want to fill. And we got 15 applications. And those applications were highly qualified and outstanding applicants. Okay, we didn't, you know, sometimes you may post an ad on Indeed or something like that and get like 20, 30 frivolous, irrelevant applications for people who are, I don't know, completely outside the ABA field and have no idea what job they just applied for. We didn't get nothing like that. Okay, we got highly qualified, highly experienced people with 15, 20, 30 years of experience in the field saying, I want to be a part of this. I'm interested. Here's the seat that I would like to apply for. Okay, so that was really exciting, and I've put in green the seats that I'm not sure we're going to fill in this first round of applications. Okay, and so that means there's a possibility that there will initiate a second round of applications to fill remaining seats on the board, and I have a feeling we'll indefinitely try to, you know, open up applications to try to fill all the seats in the board. Okay. So next are resources. That's another metric we track because it's essential for NASQN's mission to continue to produce resources that have value and have utility in quality assurance in ABA service delivery settings. And so let's see here. So right now we have 3 resources. Okay, we have that reference list that can help someone accelerate their professional development sort of journey on learning about quality assurance and how it applies to them and their role in ABA service setting. Then we have the newsletter, and we have a high performance work team workshop, which is an offering to new leads on future work groups. And then as we'll learn about in a few minutes here from Adriana and Aaron or Sarah, that we have 2 work groups that are developing additional resources right now. Okay, so it's anticipated that we'll add some resources to this figure in a couple months here. Okay, so work groups formed. We had 3, and now we have 2 work groups. And we have expanded the range of different topics that work groups could focus on. And so those are still opportunities, but what we would like to do is encourage folks who are interested in being part of a new work group in the future to look for opportunities in Q4 of this year, or perhaps Q1 of next year, because it is anticipated that when we form the board of directors, each member on the board will have a role in forming and managing work groups or high performance work teams, committees, etc. And sort of that's how things will flow at that time. But you can see here on the slide, there's a wide range of topics that future committees or work groups could focus on. And also sort of a primary initiative of the board going forward will to do engage in strategic planning and then align the topics in the work groups and committees and so forth with the vital few and the key initiatives that they'll be pursuing. Okay, here's one more metric. This is newsletter subscribers. So I didn't compare the characteristics of the prior newsletter to some type of standard and therefore systematically evaluate the quality of the newsletter. However, I would say this is a higher quality newsletter this month, and that's just because we made it prettier, okay, and added some additional content that we didn't have before. So for example, we had a contributor, Rebecca Womack, who sort of did some research on Behavior Live and looked to the future in conferences and looked at who's presenting on the topic of quality, mainly I think by searching the keyword quality for talks that are anticipated to be published on Behavior Live later this year. And she found some of those and wrote up a nice article in the newsletter. And so that was fantastic. So the number of subscribers is gradually increasing. So that's good. That's a good indicator. Now we'll switch gears here. We collaborated with Dr. Cody Morris and David Cox and to submit to Behavior Analysis in Practice a proposal for a special issue on quality. And the proposal was submitted, and so now I assume it is under review by the editor-in-chief. And I think this is super exciting because there's never been a special issue on quality that I know of in any peer-reviewed journal in our field. So this is going to set, this is a first, And one of the things that was particularly exciting is that as David and Cody and I, reached out to colleagues and said, hey, we wrote up this special issue proposal. Here's a draft of the proposal. Could we count on you to support it by committing to, being a reviewer or submitting a manuscript? Okay, 19 confirmed contributors. I could tell you all but one person that I reached out to said, yes, absolutely. This is a great idea. I plan to be, I plan to submit a manuscript to this special issue. So I think we are creating a new contingency that didn't exist perhaps for research on quality. And then 14 confirmed reviewers. So those are all, that's all very good and promising, I think. And we're going to need all the help of those reviewers if there's a lot of papers submitted. Okay, so we still have open volunteer positions, a volunteer assistant editor for the newsletter. So if that's something you'd like to help out with and take the lead on, you could scan that QR code on the top and submit an application. If you're interested in getting in on the let's say in a year or two, if there is a NASQN annual quality conference, okay, a precursor to that might be a series of online webinars with talks on quality. And in order to get that off the ground, we basically need more resources. We need more people power to make that get that off the ground. And so that's something someone who's serving in a quality webinar manager volunteer role could do. They could get that off the ground, get that running in that series of online webinars over the next few months, or for perhaps a year, would perhaps feed into an annual quality conference if we can accomplish that. Okay, let's turn it over to work group updates. All right. So this is sort of a dashboard, if you will, on work group status. And so the treatment plan work group and the supervision work group are the two that are in progress right now. And treatment plan work group is on month 5, and out of an anticipated 6 months to complete their project. And then the supervision work group is on month 3. Let's see here. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Adriana Anderson, who is the lead on treatment plan quality work group.
Hi, thank you. And I appreciate your patience with me, Brian, as I'm at FABA and trying to like navigate all the time, because East Coast time to West Coast time is always like hard to get used to. But so we're going to provide a quick update regarding the treatment plan quality work group. We do have our official September meeting next week. So we're going to be reviewing 2 of the materials so far that is going along with our treatment plan quality kind of guidelines, recommendations, essentially kind of like a starter packet for people as they're starting to consider what treatment plan quality could and should include in their organization as they're starting to develop their own process and plan for evaluating some of these factors. So we are going to be starting with, Brian, do you want to share your screen, or would you like me to? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking, well, we could try that out, where I could you could let me know which document you want to share, and I could try to screen share that for you.
Cool, perfect. If you can pull up the continuity of care toolkit from the BACB.
Absolutely. I'll do my best here.
Beautiful. So we're starting with this tool. We're gonna this is gonna be in relation to the discharge section can't talk today, of the treatment plan work group materials. And the reason why we want to highlight this is something that currently is available to everybody. But unfortunately, there are some instances in which people aren't aware of it. The BACB did develop this continuity of services toolkit for behavior analysts, providing direct services to individuals with autism in regards to any managing, as you can see, direct service interruptions. So this is maybe just staff leave. So how do you manage what to do with your client when staff leave and you're waiting for new staff? Even transitions. And these transitions include transitioning from supervisor to supervisor within the same organization, transitioning to another agency for a variety of reasons, or transitioning to another service entity, right? Maybe they're going to be focusing on a more community-based service entity versus ABA. And also discontinuation. So the conditions under which we're going to discontinue services. And while we all like to think ABA, especially in the focus of autism services or developmental disability and diagnosis services, discontinuation is graduation, that's not always the case. There may be times in which services discontinue abruptly due to a change in insurance, or maybe family financial needs, right? Or they're just life barriers where the parents are like, I have 5 kids and I really need to do this, but it's really hard for us to manage the schedule. So we need to pause for a little bit until we can figure this out. And while they recognize this is an important service for their child, they also need to recognize their own family's care and their own personal health care. So how can we work with them to provide this effective service in transition? And there's also the times in which we might transition services because ABA may no longer or may not currently be effective for the individual. And I want to specify not ABA as a science or as a practice, but in relation to the individual or the agency that is currently providing the services. The way that our science and practice is currently being implemented may not be effective for the individual at that time. So there is a difference between ABA as a science and principles and being effective, because we all know, right? You manipulate things, you address things, and you look at them systematically, and it can be. But there may be times in which the client has an additional need that the current provider doesn't have the scope of practice or scope of competence to address. So tons of different cases in which you would look at discharge. And also, I hope one day that we can change the word from discharge to something else, right? Because it is a medical term that is more focused on you no longer need this medical service, right? You are discharged from chemotherapy. You are discharged from maybe this type of physical therapy for this reason, right? But, are with the clients we work with and their diagnosis, it's not that their diagnosis goes away. It's that, it continues and persists. And so discharge within our field has a different kind of meaning. So one day, hopefully we can make that change. But until then, this is what we're going to be focusing on. So we are going to be using this toolkit as one of the resources that's going to be linked in it. So one, clinicians can go and have access to that direct source that was devised by our board. No matter what we say, we need to follow our ethical guidelines devised by our board as well. So anytime we can link it to their resources, that is our goal. Also, it is important to highlight too that sometimes, right, we talk about ethics violations or people submitting ethics violations to the board, and you're like, so what does it do? Well, this continuity of services toolkit was actually devised because of the number of ethics violations that were submitted and addressed for inappropriate discontinuation of services. They recognized that discharge was not appropriately addressed or taught as part of the task list. It is now embedded too within test content 6. So hopefully in the future, we'll start to see more people with a little bit more understanding of discharge. I would like to note that it is embedded within discharge or discontinuation, both with clients and supervision practices. So it is intertwined in that way. So we might actually see it more discussed in regards to discontinuation of supervision services. But until test content 6 curriculum gets rolled out and we start to see what happens, we'll see then how people are interpreting it. But just as a heads up, just because it's on there and because it's embedded within the two, it still is something that we should be talking about with our supervisees and how we go about that process. And another item, I don't have the link to it yet, but we are going to be talking about strategies within the discharge section on how clinicians can develop a peer review committee within their own organization, specifically at an organization I used to work for. Due to the barriers within discharge and understanding that everybody viewed it differently, some people would be like, wow, this client's ready to graduate. And then some people would be like, I could always find something to work on. And you're like, how are we so on opposite sides of this continuum? And also how confusing is it for our families as well. So we developed what was called as a discharge committee, where behavior analysts could come and they could bring concerns, whether it was going to be in regards to getting another authorization, or they can bring concerns such as, I think this client's ready to graduate or ready to start fading, but I don't think the family is going to be on board. So we would or times in which the family would like to graduate, but the clinician doesn't think that they're ready. However, there are barriers within that. So how can we as a community collaborate and provide resources and guidance to somebody as a way to remember we don't operate individually on an island, right? We operate as a community. And the more we have helped to instill that our clinical recommendations can be developed with each other, along with additional tools and resources and pulling from different people's expertise, the more we'll actually be in alignment and demonstrate that alignment to the families we work with. So we'll also have that within our discharge section. Okay, so if you can pull up the other document, Bryant.
Yes.
The very next document that we have so far developed is developed by Megan, who is one of our work group members, who was fantastic. And she looked at the assessments section. So in this section, we were specifically looking at what are some assessments that are funder required, not required, but maybe appropriate, right? Kind of like the Essential for Living. One of my favorite assessments is the Essential for Living alternate methods of speaking tool, especially if we have a client who's not going to be using vocal verbal modality for communication, right? How are we making this decision, right? So let's use something to help guide us. Also, just looking at aids and considerations for using assessments and all of that. So Megan was our amazing subgroup leader for this one. So she broke this whole thing down. So she put in a decision guide around for choosing the right assessment. And there is a link. This is in the folder for all work group members to access as well, but I will drop that link in the folder in the chat again in a minute if you would like. But she, at the top under choosing the right assessment, she has an additional Excel that people can utilize, which is just absolutely incredible, where you can look at just tracking which assessment you're using. It provides some age ranges, diagnosis, settings, scores, all of that stuff. And the cool part about it is this can be really used as a teaching and training tool within your supervision. So when someone's like, okay, I have an assessment coming up, this is going to be the assessment I use, you could say, why? How did we come about this decision? Talking through our rationale and our decision-making process is probably one of the best ways to learn from each other. So I really like how it's a guide to help give some considerations versus just a decision such as use the VB map. But she put in so much work into this in regards to different payers, different required assessments, how often they're required, and different cultural considerations that can be taken into place. We do have a few more payers that can be added to this, but this is a great start based off of her experience. So we are hoping through the rest of the work group members that we add on to that. And then you can go down at the bottom, and she added a checklist in there just to help guide people in their own little treatment integrity with assessments and what that should look like as well. But again, this is something that members can take and adapt and add on to. It's just supposed to be a starting place, because sometimes starting is the hardest place to start. You're like, where do I go from here? I have so many different ideas, and it's kind of hard to get that jump. So looking at this, you might say, ooh, I actually would rather it look this way, or this isn't added. Fantastic. Add that. Make it your own. Make it your own little baby. That's the goal. And then if you would like to share those considerations as part of this tool, please do. We would like to continue to further develop it for everybody. But again, it's just supposed to be that starting point to help people really self-reflect on what assessments are needed for their organization and how they can track that as well. So that is our update for the treatment plan work group. We do have our September meeting next week, in which we're going to be finalizing the materials, working through and providing edits. And then we're going to have a final draft ready for October on which sections of the treatment plan we were able to finish, because not all of them were completed and finished, or because not everybody signed up as a sub work group member. And then we'll be able to pass those materials on to if another work group wants to continue this, or if the members of this group want to continue developing this resource, whichever is the best. But yeah, we will have a more final product with all of the different ones for next month.
All right, fantastic. Outstanding. This clearly what you're producing here is going to have some real value for a lot of stakeholders actually in ABA autism services settings. It's exciting to see what your group has done here, Adriana. Does anyone, I'll open it up to the members here to ask you questions or offer some feedback.
Adriana, I wanted to just first apologize because I haven't gotten back to you about joining, but I will try to make September work. Otherwise, maybe we can set aside some time to go over that treatment plan rubric together. Yeah. But I just wanted to say I really love the idea of like the discharge committee that you have going. I think that's so helpful because a lot of times, just having more ideas and resources as far as making those decisions and everyone being on the same page, because I think it, like you said, it varies based on clinician experience and where they're coming from too, or what maybe their organization was previously making, as the decision maker to graduate, because some orgs, just go to age 5, or maybe they don't address like higher level social skills. They defer, refer out once they reach that. So all of everybody's experiences are so different. I love that idea.
Yeah, thank you very much. And email me if you can make it next week. Fantastic. Okay. If not, we can always schedule another time to meet to talk about that rubric that you had.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say I really like that idea as well in terms of the discharge committee, and I in looking at some of the providers in the medical field and hospitals as it pertains to discharge, some of the quality KPIs that they commonly will look at are like return visits to the ER or return for similar care issues. They'll look at and I thought with our field we could look at something similar, but also look at quality KPIs that might be aligned with discharge to a lower level of care, discharge to a higher level of care, discharge reasons. You can come up with reason codes like discharge for low treatment adherence,
Mhm.
and the various other reasons that might come up, and it'd be a good way to as an organization monitor what's happening at the upon discharge with your clients, just so you can, and hopefully there will be some actionable insights that come out of that data. That would be the hope, right? So it's cool. I mean, I didn't see that resource from the BACP, so thank you for showing that too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's pretty grand. Dr. Candace Clone, who's part of this work group but not here today, her and I were part of that, and we did a survey regarding discharge practices. One day it'll be written up. Actually, I lied. One day I will finish her edits. That's really where this lies, but that's the goal, is to start the conversation. And even you mentioned like low treatment adherence, really looking at what that means and recognizing the power dichotomy that's in that. And are we working with our families to address their barriers to services before we're just like, oh, you canceled a bunch, we're going to discharge you? But there is such a power dichotomy within that. And we have a lot of both like SES and cultural, considerations that go into it. So I think looking at the treatment adherence and providing guidelines too, I would love to add that on based off of what you said, more about questions to ask before you discharge for that reason. Because let's also be real, our staff cancel too. Our staff cancel, our staff quit, our families could be on a wait list for 2-3 months, and then we call them up and they're like, oh, you're not available this whole time, but you told me 6 months. You know what I mean? So recognizing those considerations, I think adding something like that on would be fantastic. Thank you for that suggestion, Jeremy. I'm like, where's my pen? Gotta write that down.
And in fact, I can send you the transcript to the meeting. Okay. Yeah. And I'll second what Jeremy said. I think you said this, Jeremy, that I personally didn't know that was a resource offered by the BACV as well. And so that is absolutely why we do this. That is one of the benefits of us having meetings, having a network, resource sharing, because it's like, Adriana knew something that's, some other members didn't know about this. Probably an extremely useful tool for making decisions in the best interests of patients. So that's fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for your questions for Adriana. And Adriana, this is outstanding. I'm sure I speak for everyone. We're excited to see what happens next month, what you bring to us next.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do have to take off to get back to the conference, but thank you so much everybody for your time today, and have a great one. Bye.
Have a good time. All right, everybody. And so next, what I'll do is I'll turn it over to either Erin or Sarah, co-leads on the supervision quality indicators work group.
Hi, I'll be presenting today on the supervision work group. Brian, do you have the slides?
See here, I do. And y'all can't see can everyone see the supervision quality indicators slide at the moment? Okay. Yes, I have updated the slides.
Okay, perfect. So just pulling back from last meeting, our objective is by the end of November to create a supervision playbook focusing on supervision of BCBAs. So if you go to the next slide, we have been working on a rough outline and draft of our playbook. We are currently working on organizing the topics, adding more details, and adding some additional resources. So over the next couple of slides, I'll share some more about the draft, some barriers we've run into, and some highlights. So looking at our playbook outline, we have divided it into, I think, 7 sections. So the first one is rationale, which will go through why supervision is important and provide some links to detail why supervision matters. And we're working on adding the resources into this section. The next section will be qualifications. We've currently outlined some of the qualifications for the supervisor who would oversee the behavior analysts, and we're planning to add some additional qualifications for the behavior analyst or clinician. And then we also discussed adding some additional information about when a not behavior analyst might perform these duties, like in the case of mentoring and with appropriate supervision. Next, and where the Majority of our content is supervision skills, so we are outlining the skills that could be evaluated. We're currently working through this section and trying to better categorize the skills. We are planning to send out a survey to NASQN members to get some IOA on the categorization of the skills, if the categories feel right, if there's anything else we might include in those sections. And then once that's complete, we'll work on kind of adding more to that section. Then we're going to talk about the measurement of these skills. Sections that we currently have outlined are providing effective feedback, how to receive feedback, and behavior skills training. And then we'll add more details as we have those supervision skills outlined better. And then we talk about systems and workflows. So this will just outline some general considerations of how often you should supervise your behavior analysts, and just considerations without any super firm recommendations, since we know that that will probably vary based on organization, supervisor, etc. We'll plan to add more detail to that section in the upcoming weeks. And then our last two sections are tentatively titled Feedback Loop and Putting It All Together, and we will be working on these sections as the other sections are closer to completed. Okay. One consideration that we were hoping to get the input of other NASQN members on is the terminology used within the playbook. So kind of preliminarily, we're looking at if these terms are inclusive of everyone across a variety of settings. So sort of our preliminary terms, we have supervisors. So those would be the individuals overseeing the BCBAs or clinicians. We have the term clinician, who is likely a BCBA, and we've gone back and forth on if we should use the term clinician or behavior analyst here. We also have direct support professional. So that'd be the individual implementing the protocol, hoping to include like technicians, paraprofessionals. And then learner would be the individual receiving the behavior analytic services, hoping to encompass like clients, patients, students, adult learners. And maybe at the end, we're hoping to get some input on if we feel like this terminology is representative of all of the different settings we all work in. And I think that was all.
Yeah. Okay. We got a question here.
Sarah, is this an okay place for that feedback that you were requesting?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I know that in my organization right now, we are finding it beneficial to drill down further on the term supervisor, because we were getting some issues that were coming up with nomenclature. And so clarifying if you were talking about a case supervisor or a behavior analytic trainee supervisor. So what process are they supervising essentially? So that is a learning that I've encountered recently, that could be helpful. And then avoiding, we are trying to move away from the term supervisor and supervision because it's creating some false pathways of thinking or connecting to some prior learning that we want to move away from as far as what the function of the time between the behavior analyst, the QBHP, the clinician. I'll use all those terms for clarification, but the person who is in charge of that client's progress and the program and protocol modification, in terms of what that person should be doing during their time, and that their primary function is not managerial. It's not supervising a behavior technician. It's managing the case and ensuring that it is effective and appropriate for the learner. So just two thought pathways there, clarifying who they supervise or what process they supervise, and that the word supervisor itself may be problematic.
Thank you. Do you have any suggestions for the supervisor title? We were using supervisor for the individuals who supervise the behavior analysts. So that might be like title-wise, like clinical directors, maybe like special ed directors. Is there a term you use in your organization?
Oh, you're on mute, I believe.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that's where it gets tricky. It's differentiating between job titles and function titles, right? So we call that role the Director of Clinical Services. So, but that truly is a job title rather than like a function title. So, we're talking about the people who are supervising behavior analysts or the people who are supervising behavior analytic trainees.
The people who are overseeing behavior analysts, so are likely already credentialed individuals who are overseeing their own cases.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about them in the context of broader supervision and in the context of quality. Would they be, and I'm borrowing from your playbook here, Brian, but would they be the quality managers?
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool that you brought that up. Yeah. That's one thing I've been thinking about is like if I wonder if there's a in the future maybe there's some conceptualization of a clinical director. So you have the RBTs and you have the BCBA who's responsible for the case. That's who we typically call the supervisor doing protocol modification and stuff, right? And then there's someone with a BCBA who's overseeing this, perhaps managing the supervisory effectiveness, the effectiveness of that supervisor and ensuring the client makes progress, the RBT's thriving, they're developing professionally, and so on and so forth. So there might be quality indicators of supervisor effectiveness, or protocol modification effectiveness, things like that, that the clinical director, the person to whom that clinical BCBA supervisor reports to, and that person, if they are perhaps focused on quality indicators of supervision effectiveness, we might consider a term of manager for quality at that point. They're like a clinical quality manager or something. So I think your group has raised an interesting question, Sarah, and that Jennifer has extended here by pulling from experience she's had in her organization where it ain't clear. And also what seemed to stand out was a distinction between a label for a position that references perhaps mainly like a power structure or organizational structure versus the functional purpose of the person serving in that role. And maybe those weren't different terms and will lead to a structural or functional analysis of the person's responsibilities in that role. So this is super cool. But I gotta pin this because we gotta move on.
Right. Well, just real quick, Brian. Just one more piece of feedback. In California, we operate 3-tier models, and so we have a mid-tier supervisor as well, or mid-tier clinician. And so there may be some things there that you may want to address on that level as well.
Cool. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Sarah, fantastic. So your group is plugging along and y'all are getting closer and closer to this supervision playbook, and conceptually it's becoming clear. You have these different sections of the playbook you want to hit. And I like that you're leaning towards considerations rather than specific guidelines, because as you said, what you're going to do is probably produce a product from your work group that spurs additional work in this area and refinements and expansions and so forth. So outstanding. Okay, thank you so much for the update. All right, everybody. So we got about 6 minutes here. So just a quick update on the board. So on September 19th, we started conducting interviews over 3 weeks. And phenomenal candidates? No, we have phenomenal candidates. Okay, and we plan to offer board seats within the coming weeks. And please keep a lookout for round 2 at some point to fill remaining seats. As I mentioned before, if you're interested in joining a high performance work team, which is the new way that we are structuring work groups, board members are going to be chairing seats focus on these areas: business development, quality assurance, payer partnerships, public relations, government affairs, and research, and so forth. So as the strategic plan for NASQN evolves and people take these seats and we start to move things along, it's anticipated that there will be opportunities to join high performance work teams and committees working under those individuals. And that QR code right there is one you could scan today if you wanted to, and then you would just complete a form saying, in the future, should an opportunity to join another high performance work team pop up, please put me on the list. Essentially, is what that is. All right. And there's music on the form. It's fun. Press the button, turn on the music. All right. And likely available board seats in the future are fundraising chair, legal representation chair, professional organizations liaison. And if you're interested in applying for one of those positions, scan that QR code. All right. And then lastly, everybody, in the last couple of minutes here, as I mentioned, Jeremy and I have played around a little bit with logos. And this is particularly, I mean, I love this stuff. So starting a new, sort of brand and thinking about the brand and how we're gonna, what's NASQN gonna look like, in digital channels and so forth, is really fun. And so I've been playing around with some logos here, and Jeremy and I think we have a favorite at this point of the ones we're showing you on the screen. But I thought it would be fun just to show you all these logos and give you an opportunity to shape us and push us in a particular direction if you think any particular logo here is cool. Okay, so you can see they're labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. And let's see here. There's a difference between these two. This one, number 8, has these fun little symbols down here that are they're symbolic of some of the core ideas at NASQN. Symbolizing things like database and process improvement and so on and so forth. And yeah, so I thought we could just open up the chat here and have some fun with this and maybe vote for one of these logos. I could do a poll, but easier just to put it in the chat box. If you have.
Can you read what it says on the bottom of the circle on
Yeah.
the 1st and the 8th? I just can't see that well.
I'm gonna try.
It's so small on the screen.
All right, so don't hold me accountable if I say this wrong, because I don't read Latin. I don't know. All right, so the first one here is achieving parity. Okay,
Sure.
at the top, and it says "Bonitas praestat copiae," which I believe that is how it's pronounced, and that's Latin for quality over quantity. Okay, and then this one just says achieving parity down under NASQN, achieving parity again, and that's basically what all those logos say. Okay, under the word NASQN. And achieving parity is sort of like a shorthand kind of slogan or of sorts for achieve quality. Parity is I don't know if y'all have heard David Palmer talk about automatic or as a echoic responding potentially automatically reinforced by parity, where you have the verbal antecedent stimulus and then they emit vocal response that is essentially a copy, an echoic response, and to the extent to which the antecedent stimulus and the response match, there's parity, and presumably that's automatically reinforcing. Hopefully I got that right. It's been a long time since I thought about it, but that's where I thought of the idea of parity. And I thought, that's what we're trying to do. In quality assurance, we have a bar that we set or a target that we want to hit or standards that we want to meet. We engage in some practices, and there's variability in those practices over time, and we try to shrink the gap between expected and actual outcomes, and when that gap is eliminated or reduced as far as we can go, we've achieved parity. That's the idea. Okay, feel free to vote now. I'll give you another 30 seconds or so. We have 2 votes in the chat box here. Duff says 1, Dana says 1 or 8.
I like 8, but I'm worried that the images across the bottom, once you start to create like shirts and bag, whatever, they're going to get messy. That's my only.
Yeah. Any other votes here? Oh, you can put 0 if you were like none of these. Okay, this shouldn't be a forced choice. Put 0. Say need new logo options. That's fine. All right.
Do you want it to say what NASQN is, like instead of just the acronym on the logo, or no?
I don't know. Good question. Good question. I don't know. Yeah. So maybe something like instead of the achieving parity, the National ABA CERS. It's pretty long, you know, to squeeze in, but we can squeeze it in there, you know. But we have to get rid of the Latin and the achieving parity, I think, maybe to squeeze it in there. Anyways, well, it's cool. Mostly everyone who voted won. And guess what? That's me and Jeremy's favorite. That's a winner. All right, cool. Let me see here. All right, guys. We don't have time to brainstorm today about quality jobs, but that's okay. We'll pin that and move to the next meeting. And next meeting scheduled for October 17th at 11 a.m. Central Daylight Time. You can access the meeting link at NASQN LinkedIn group page. If you have any interesting takeaways, I hope you'll share it on LinkedIn with hashtag NASQN or on other social media outlets. And if you're viewing this on YouTube, feel free to scan this QR code to join the NASQN LinkedIn group. And if you like this video, click subscribe. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for your input. Thank you so much for your feedback to the work group members. And so I think in that in feedback you're giving, you're doing what I envisioned for the work groups is you're going to potentially have a shaping effect on the trajectory of those work groups, the kind of process or sorry, resources they produce. All right, I'll go ahead. Oh, you're very welcome. I'll stop the transcribing and stop recording. Let's stop recording here.